I was sitting at my kitchen table when the letter arrived. Not an email, not a text. A certified letter that required my signature, the kind that makes your stomach drop before you even open it. My hands were shaking as I tore through the envelope, and that's when I saw it, a foreclosure notice on my house. The house I'd owned outright for 12 years. The house I'd worked 3 jobs to pay off early, so I could retire in peace. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the line that said I'd missed 6 months of payments on a reverse mortgage I never knew existed. $180,000. Disbursed over 2 years. To an account I'd never opened. And right there at the bottom of the page was a scanned copy of my signature, my actual signature, on documents I'd never seen in my life. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and pulled on my banking app. Nothing unusual. My pension deposits, my small savings, everything exactly where it should be. So I checked my credit report on my laptop, waiting for the page to load with my heart hammering against my ribs, and when it finally appeared, my entire world tilted sideways. There it was. A reverse mortgage opened 23 months ago. Perfect payment history for 18 months. Then 6 months of silence. And the address listed for correspondence wasn't mine. It was my daughter Marissa's apartment across town. I would soon discover that the daughter I raised, the one I sacrificed everything for, had been systematically stealing my entire future. But the reason why? That would destroy me in ways I never saw coming. That I sat there staring at that screen, my brain trying to make it make sense. Maybe it was identity theft. Maybe someone stole both our information. But deep down, in that sick, hollow place in my stomach, I already knew. Marissa was 32, and she'd always been my miracle. I had her at 19, raised her alone after her father disappeared, worked night shifts as a nurse while going to community college during the day. When she got into nursing school herself, I cried for 3 days straight. She was going to have the life I'd scraped together for her. She'd moved back in with me 2 years ago after her divorce. Said she needed time to get back on her feet, and of course I said yes. She had her own space in the converted basement, and we'd have dinner together twice a week. She'd tell me about her shifts at the hospital, about saving up to buy her own place soon. I believed every word. I trusted her with everything. She had a key. She knew where I kept my important documents. She knew my routines, knew I wasn't tech-savvy, knew I preferred paper statements. Looking back now, I could see how carefully she'd played it, volunteering to help me declutter my office, suggesting I switch to paperless statements, setting up a new email address for me, because my old one was compromised. The afternoon I found that letter, I sat at my kitchen table until sunset, trying to figure out what to do. So I called the mortgage company. The woman on the phone was sympathetic but firm. Yes, the reverse mortgage was legitimate. Yes, my signature was on file. Yes, the money had been disbursed. $80,000 at closing, then $5,000 monthly for 20 months. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Your daughter Marissa Sullivan was listed as your power of attorney on the application. She actually came in person to finalize the paperwork. Lovely woman. Very concerned about making sure you were taken care of. Power of attorney. I'd never given her power of attorney. I went straight to my filing cabinet. Everything was there, birth certificate, social security card, the deed to my house. Except it felt slightly off, like someone had gone through them carefully and put them back almost perfectly. Almost. And then I found it, tucked behind my will, a power of attorney document dated 2 years ago. My signature at the bottom, notarized and official. I stared at it, trying to remember signing it, but there was nothing. But the signature looked perfect. Too perfect. And that's when I started to understand just how deep my daughter's betrayal actually went. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called a private investigator. He found the account in 2 days, a business account in Marissa's name called Sullivan Healthcare Consulting, LLC. Every penny had gone there, then been withdrawn within days. I hired a forensic accountant. The paper trail made me physically ill. The money had gone toward a condo Marissa bought in her own name, investment accounts, a new car, designer clothes, trips to Miami and Los Angeles. She'd been living a completely different life on my stolen future while coming to my house twice a week to lie to my face. But here's what haunted me. She'd been making the payments faithfully for 18 months. She'd planned to keep this going forever. The payments only stopped 6 months ago, which meant something had changed. I confronted her on a Tuesday evening. I'd invited her for dinner like normal, and when she was relaxed and comfortable, I slid the foreclosure notice across the table. The color drained from her face, but then her expression hardened. She didn't apologize. Instead, she looked at me with something cold. "You were never going to use that equity anyway," she said quietly. "You were just going to die and leave it to me eventually." I just accelerated the timeline. I asked her why she stopped making payments. And that's when she told me the truth that shattered everything. "Because I found out you're not actually my biological mother," she said. "And I realized I don't owe you anything anymore." The room started spinning. She'd done a DNA ancestry test 9 months ago, and her results showed no genetic connection to me. She'd hired an investigator who uncovered that I'd adopted her as an infant through a private arrangement and never told her. "You lied to me my entire life," she said, standing up. "Made me call you mom. But we're not blood. You're just someone who took in a stranger's baby." I tried to explain that she was my daughter, that biology didn't matter, that every sacrifice was real. But she wasn't listening. She left that night, and I went to the police. They arrested her on fraud charges. A handwriting expert confirmed my suspicions. The signatures were traced, perfectly copied from my real signature on old documents. Forensic analysis showed the pressure points were wrong. Marissa had forged everything. The bank was still moving forward with foreclosure. I was going to lose my house because my daughter valued money more than she valued me. But then I found her journal. And what was written inside made me understand that everything I thought I knew was wrong, that I went to her apartment when she was at work. I still had a key, and I was looking for answers. The journal was in her nightstand. Purple leather cover, pages filled with her handwriting. And with every page I turned, my heart broke in a new way. She'd known about the adoption since she was 19. A relative had tracked her down through social media and told her everything. For 13 years, she'd known and never said a word. Instead, she'd written about it. Page after page of anger and confusion and feeling betrayed. She'd watched me work myself into exhaustion and resented every sacrifice, convinced herself I'd only taken her in out of obligation. She'd researched reverse mortgages 2.5 years ago and realized she could access my home equity. She'd practiced my signature for weeks. But then, 8 months ago after her DNA results, the tone changed. The justifications got stronger, meaner. She wrote that finding out the truth freed her from feeling guilty. Except that wasn't the end. The final entries from 2 months ago told a different story. She'd written about lying awake at night, about seeing my face when I begged her to explain, about remembering every childhood illness, every heartbreak, every crisis I'd helped her through. She'd written, "What have I done?" And then, "I don't know how to fix this." She'd stopped making the payments not because she found out about the adoption. She'd stopped because the guilt was eating her alive. She'd let the foreclosure happen because some part of her wanted to get caught. I took photos of the journal pages and left. I went home and cried for hours because I finally understood my daughter hadn't become a monster. She'd become a scared, angry person who'd made a terrible choice and doubled down rather than face it. The trial ended with a plea deal. 3 years probation, full restitution, 500 hours of community service. The bank restructured the reverse mortgage, and I got to keep my house. Marissa and I don't talk anymore. She sends restitution payments every month, $450. It'll take 18 years to pay back what she stole. I'll be 73 when it's done. Sometimes I think about reaching out, about telling her I read her journal, that I understand she was hurting, that forgiveness is possible. But then I remember that foreclosure notice, the cold look in her eyes, and I realize some betrayals cut too deep. She's still my daughter. I still love her. But love doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. You know, if you've stayed with me through this whole painful story, if you've felt even a fraction of what I felt, then maybe you understand why I needed to tell it. If this resonated with you, if you've got your own complicated family story, I'd love to know I'm not alone. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real, raw, and honest, I'll keep telling them. I still live in my house. I still work part-time. And every month when that restitution payment hits my account, I feel the weight of everything we lost, not the money, but the relationship, the trust, the future where my daughter and I would grow old together. Some days I wonder if I should have told her about the adoption from the beginning. But then I remember, I raised her with every ounce of love I had. And she chose to steal from me anyway. That's not about biology. That's about character. And that's the truth I'm learning to live with. Subscribe if you believe in telling the whole truth, no matter how painful. Like, if this story of a broken bond and a stolen home resonated with you, share it with anyone who's ever had to choose between family and their own survival. And in the comments, I'd honestly love to know, where do you draw the line? Is there a betrayal that love can't come back from? You're not alone in asking. Let's talk.